Welcome to the Coombe & Curry Sports Cards podcast, where collecting meets the game. Your hosts, the Tag Team Champions. Before we get into today's episodes, we'd like to thank our sponsors, Kiwi Card Collective. Baza, welcome back to the Coombe & Curry Sports Card podcast, this time as a co-host.
Hey, there we go.
Yeah, the
Good
show
morning,
last
good
week
afternoon,
was so
good
good.
evening.
Yeah. Hey, I'm so pleased to, so we've got, we're going to have a bonus episode today. So we'll have our normal episode that you and I are doing. And then we have got an episode coming up with MC. He'll be back. He's otherwise engaged tonight, let's say. And we've got Seaside Sports Cards coming on from the UK to give us a little look at the new Topps flagship Premier League product. A little catch up with NBA and what I know you're into the NBA as well, Baza. And obviously we'll have MC back. So yeah, bonus episode. So this will be episode 58. I guess the primary hosting responsibility falls on me, which I kind of take for granted of MC at the minute. He seems to be he's the man that sort of holds the show together. So we'll muddle through, Baza.
Fair enough. Hey, look, I'm just here for the ride. So you've just picked me up. So I'll ride along with you. So if it goes wrong, we're in it together, mate, and we can blame MC later on.
Oh, appreciate it. Yeah, and also you've got we spoke about in the last show, but yeah, hat-trick ball as well. We didn't realise it would come so quickly.
yeah, exactly. So always grateful and always best to have an opportunity to talk and talk sports cards and all things good things. So yeah, man, let's kick into it.
I've got a quick story for you, Baza. So when I first saw your content or came across your content, it was the video you did when you came over and you went to Top Play Sports Cards. Now, people, the regular listeners will know that I live fairly close. And even today, mate, I'm planning after the podcast, I'm going to go out there and buy a box of Resurgence. But we'll come to that in a minute. But yeah, I saw your video and we connected, and there was that was our common ground. It was our sort of, obviously our connection. But I go in there quite a bit and I have a joke with Shane, and he's just started a shared page with another, what do you call him? Content creator, influencer. And, I've been giving him a bit of stick saying, he's got his new favourite content creator and that. And yesterday was a weird day, right? So I go into the store and Jordan from Dash Sports Cards is in there. And we're chatting away. And then this guy comes in and he's just having a little look around the store. We're all chatting and he looks up and he looks at Dash and he goes, he says, "Oh, you Dash Sports Cards?" And he says, yeah. He says, I've been in your breaks and this sort of thing. And they're like both chatting and that. And me and Shane are just looking at them like, and I did a little post yesterday. It was like watching someone meet their hero, like I'm just watching them, like all the smiles on their face. And you see, like, jokes aside, you see, how much people love the hobby. They're chatting. It was quite funny. And then Shane says to the guy, he says, "Have a look at him," right? He says, "Do you know who he is?" And the guy looked at me, right? And he went, "No idea." He couldn't stop laughing. I said to him, "I've fallen down the ranks, haven't I? You've got this guy coming in, meeting his hero, and then looks at me, nah, no idea." So,
well, good on Shane for trying to make that link, right? So you have to applaud Shane to try and give you some props. But you might need to do a bit more work, mate, to get some.
I know.
Some more content out there to the masses, but nice to know. It's a cool little story.
Maybe I need to start reviewing pies. That seems to be the thing at the minute. But Baza, right, let's get into it. So first thing I wanted to speak about is new product, Resurgence, NFL. We had a little bit of a chat before we started recording, and what I'm finding with Resurgence is, I don't know if this is a saying over here, but it's a bit like Marmite. So you either love it or hate it. There doesn't seem to be much of an in-between. I did a post last night, so I bought 2 value boxes, and I put a post out saying I'm in love. I'm not going to lie to you. What a product. Like, I don't even think you can have a bad box. Sometimes when you open a box of sort of products we love and we spoke about, Phoenix, for example, yes, there's some really nice cards, but you can get some pretty dodgy boxes. But like even these base cards, Baza, look like inserts. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I've got actually a bit of a backstory for Resurgence, and for those that have probably followed my content from the very beginning will know that I've got a sweet spot for Resurgence as a set. But to answer your first question, yeah, I think the design language is awesome. It's beautiful. And you're right, each card, whilst it is a base card, can be considered, an insert, right? A common insert. And I watched a few breaks on it earlier this week, and when people were showing the inserts, the actual inserts, even those were like, these should be case hits. So I think that speaks volumes when you can kind of go, well, the base card should be inserts and the inserts should be case hits. Now, to your earlier point around, do people love it, hate it? I think it really comes down to preference around, what people enjoy looking at and touching and feeling. Because I think at the end of the day, all the sets and all the cards across Panini, Topps, so on and so forth, are all subjective to people that go, well, I've got an affinity for nice, clean designs. I like color. I like die cuts. I like thick cards. I like so on and so forth. So I think the aim of the game for at least the manufacturers or the Topps and the Panini, obviously they're trying to have to cater to everybody on that spectrum. So I guess for, say, someone like yourself and I, we're probably in that group where we like color. We like the shiny cards. We've spoken about that, I think, in one of the earlier pods. And so I think this, for me, and it sounds like for you, it kind of has a really nice blend where it's just like, it pops regardless, and it just looks really nice. And then obviously in hand looks even better. So that's where I think the initial thoughts are on the new Resurgence. So I personally really love it. And if I go back to my my sweet spot, so my wife and I, when we turned 40, we went to Japan for our 40th because we were
Nice.
both sort of turned 40 in the same year. So we went to Japan, or Tokyo in particular. And I was still early in my hobby collecting days, but there was a couple of card shops out there that I went to, and obviously I had 40th spending money, and so I decided, I'm going to go buy a handful of boxes. And I still wasn't sort of familiar with all the sets and all that sort of jazz, but I did see Resurgence, which was the non-licensed Topps version. And so I opened a couple of boxes of that, and that's when I got my first auto ever out of it. It was just, I can't remember the name, but it was just a real random dude, again, non-licensed product. And actually just the design of that set, 2024, to me, was also very appealing in the same framework that I just mentioned. So licensed or non-licensed, again, for me, I like to look for the design aspect and how that looks. And so, like you said, some people will really love it. Some people go, hey, that's way too much going on. I like the simplicity. I want to focus on the player, the sport, whatever it might be. It's detracting from that. But again, that is the name of the game when it comes to producing those sort of products. Topps, Panini have got to try and cater for everybody. So that's sort of, I guess, my perspective and my thoughts on it.
Yeah, that's a great point, Baza. Sometimes we have discussions around what makes us tick and stuff like that, and I think you've hit the nail on the head. This is a very, very colourful product, and when I think about cards I like, they're usually like my favourite. Like when you talk about Panini, you talk about downtowns, uptowns, kabooms, that type of thing. Out of those type of cards, my favourite would be the Colour Blasts. I love the Colour Blast because you've got the colour, and then it pops against a clean background, which is usually white. Now, I want to give you one example. So just holding up here to the camera for those who are on YouTube, there's a base card for you. And that's a complete coincidence, but that's your team, Bill's. It's literally on top of the pile, yeah. It's almost like I planned that, Baza. No, that's really nice. The colour pops against the silver. But what I'm really, really impressed with is the base rookie cards. So for me, they've almost got that sort of Colour Blast type, where you've got the colour against a clean background, and they've got like sort of blends of white in, and that sort of blast aura that's behind them is a little bit different to the base cards. And these are really, really impressive. And I spoke to my wife yesterday. Now, this is massive. This is huge, controversial comment from me. But here's my JSN rookie Downtown, which is a nice card. I'm not the biggest Downtown fan. I love this card because it's got a story behind it. It's got a really, really cool story behind it. But I said to my wife, right, I held up a rookie and I put that against the slab. And to me, Now this is huge, Baza. I could attract some real criticism for this, but that as a base card has more eye appeal, in my opinion, than that particular downtown on eye appeal alone. And that's the beauty of the hobby. There's going to be people listening to that. Brock in particular, he's a huge downtown fan. I mean, he could cease all contact with me after that comment. But
yeah,
but I think when you said to me about when you were just saying there to the listeners about the color, I think that really is what it is. And I heard someone on a podcast yesterday saying that if you love color, I was watching a hobby box against 13 value boxes in terms of what they were paid, and the guy was saying if you love color, if you're a big fan of it, this is going to be a product for you, because I mean, even the parallels are. I got a Roma Dunze numbered card yesterday. I mean, it's just
gorgeous.
It's a real, it's a stunning design. It's a real fun rip, and it's interesting because you said we've got like our top products from Panini, National Treasures and Immaculate and Flawless and stuff like that. But those cards, Flawless, look, I can't afford Flawless, to be honest. I've never been in a Flawless break. I probably never will. But those cards have almost got like a classic, I say old-fashioned, but they've never really... Yes, there's some amazing low-numbered cards. There's some amazing autos and players, patches and whatnot. But as a card design, with gold trims and stuff like that, they've always looked a bit old-fashioned to me, and they've never really ticked my boxes. And I did a post yesterday, and it's something we were going to talk about today, about our 5 kind of products mixed between Panini and Topps over the last few years, because obviously I've only been in the hobby for 2 years, that we enjoy ripping. And I wouldn't have those products in there because of the way the design of the card looks. And this is why, look, I'm going to let everyone into an early secret. That's why Resurgence is very, very high on my list, because I've opened 2 boxes. I've maybe been in 3 breaks, but man, I've had fun opening those boxes. Those 2 value boxes I did last night, which will be on Instagram, I would say is the most fun I've had ripping boxes. And that was 2 value boxes.
Yeah, I can't argue about any of those points, because I'm right in your corner in regards to everything you just mentioned. And I will say that when you talked about sort of the upper high-end Immaculate Flawless National Treasure sort of style cards, again, going back to my earlier point, they are almost targeted for a specific type of collector in many regards, that probably have a set of, I wouldn't say standards, but certainly a set of design language, if that's the right word, of clean, classic look, where, I just talked about, if it's a busy card like a Resurgence where it's got heaps of vibrant colors, they might be looking to go, well, actually, I want to be able to have a nice, clean card that represents my player, my team. And as you're sort of talking about that, I think another good indicator of the subjectivity of collectors and what they like and don't like is patches, right? So you can have a really beautiful card, but if it's a plain white patch, you kind of go, oh, no. But you could have a really dull card, but like this amazing 4-color logo laundry tag patch, and everyone is like, that is a sick card, right?
Yeah.
And so again, it probably goes back to the point around the subjectivity of what people like and don't like. And so I think, as you mentioned, that's the beauty of the hobby, right? It's designed so that everybody can feel connected to something, and not everybody's going to like the exact same thing. And if it were, then we'd probably have a whole bunch of collectors in the hobby that won't exist, because they go, well, I absolutely hate Resurgence. And if Resurgence is the only design language of all sets, then I'm not going to be in the hobby. And then likewise, if the only one is just like a clean card with no design language, then you'll have people that really love color go, well, I don't want to be part of the hobby if that's the only design language. So yeah.
It's 100%, Baza. I've got a really weird mind. So the way I kind of, when you think about things, I'll always be honest with my view. So when I said, like I said, look, Brock's going to be fuming when he hears what I've just said. But sometimes I wonder, in this hobby, do people say or think or like a particular card because that's the trend and that's what we think we're supposed to like, i.e. downtowns or kabooms and stuff like that. Whereas I think like a kaboom is I like kabooms actually. but I can see easily how they would be like, as I said earlier, like Marmite. You either love them or hate them. There's maybe not a lot of in between. And I kind of, like I kind of think about music. So I love music, and you get a group. Let's say you get a group of people, and you're going to share your top 10 albums of all time. Is there going to be an element where people will look at the people in that particular group at the time and go, "Oh, what do they like?" If I said, "Oh, I'm thinking of I'm a Spice Girls fan, yeah, but look, these guys all like rock. These are all cool people. How can I tell them that Spice Girls are in my top 10, So I'm going to say, Pink Floyd. Yeah, Pink Floyd, one of my favourite albums, And I wonder if there's an element of that with cards, where is this how we get in these trends where people kind of go with what they think they're supposed to say? Oh, yeah, these are my favourite cards. Because and again, I highlight this all the time, it's really important for our podcast and what we're doing, is that my unique, MC, our unique perspective in the hobby is that we're new. So maybe I can get away with saying what some people perceive to be outrageous comments, but that's why I'm getting excited about this product, because I genuinely believe that. I think that card I showed you's got more eye appeal than that particular downtown, and I think that's one of the reasons why I just love opening it. The cards are, I love the color against that background. I just think it's an amazing product, Baza. And you look at Cosmic, for example. When Topps came out, I thought Topps Chrome was a terrible, terrible product. I really don't. There was some, as I saw on your post yesterday, there's some nice parallels. That Sam Darnold pink. But in every bad set, there's some nice parallels or some. But again, what makes that nice is the color. The color, all of a sudden, I'm like, yeah, I like that. It really makes a difference. But Top Chrome for me was a terrible product. Really, really poor. And it made me worried as a fairly new, I've just got used to all these Panini products. But then we saw Signature Class, which was, I quite enjoyed that. I think Signature Class was quite fun. But it's a paper product. And then obviously Cosmic, and I'm like, I was in love with Cosmic, but I think with Cosmic there was that middle ground as well. So you could go like, these parallels or inserts are phenomenal, which they are, and then you've got this middle ground. So I don't feel that there was a big gap between we hate it or we love it. Whereas, we've been able to put our finger on why we might love Resurgence, but I still can't fully put my finger on why there seems to be not a lot of middle ground.
Yeah, it is an interesting perspective and observation, and I don't have an answer as such, but it maybe could be a combination of timing from the manufacturers like Topps, for example, and maybe it is because if you think about when they picked up the license for both sports, I think basketball occurred late last year, NBA, and then obviously football earlier this year, and so I think there was an element of, let's try and get some key products out the door. And then probably use this period of, call it 6 or 8 months, where they've had a handful of products out the gate, and I suspect that their marketing team and their strategy team will go look back and go, what sold, what didn't sell, what was really valuable, and all the rest of it, and get all the market feedback, and then I'm no doubt that they will go for the 2026-27 season for both respective sports, and either make alterations or changes. Even if you look at the upcoming Topps flagship NFL, right? So it's completely different to the Topps Chrome or the Topps. I know they didn't do a Topps flagship for football or NFL, but it's completely different altogether, right? And so I think that's part of the beauty of the hobby, is the anticipation of what does a set look like for the next season. I know, talking to somebody at the West Coast Card Show, and there was a set that came out in NBA Midnight, and a sort of a high-end product, and he was saying that it never really took off, because the pricing was really high. So the value versus the product didn't quite meet people's expectation. But he also got feedback saying that it was hard to sell because people were like, it kind of looks blah. Like, it's dark, it's gloomy.
Yeah.
There's some cool inserts and some cool parallels, but the overall set was like, it had like a gloomy feel to it. So it never really took off. So that was his perspective, as someone that was trying to sell Midnight and breaks and all the rest of it. He said it was one of the harder products to sell, and he had to do lots of minis and all sorts of stuff to try and just get it up and running, right? Whereas other products, he didn't even have to blink. It was like it went up so quickly. So again, to your point and to our earlier conversation, it's like everything is subjective. And so, yeah, the anticipation of what does a new set design look like, I think is part of that, part of the hobby as well.
Buzzer, do you think there's a lot of science that goes into the order in which these products are released? Because is there an element where you know, like I'm all of a sudden, that I got so excited about Cosmic, and there's a little bit of a lull, then I get Resurgence, and I'm all over this. And when I'd finished doing my videos yesterday where I opened these boxes, I then was flicking through social media. I did a few posts myself, and then you start seeing some people posting some like Panini cards. And I was a bit like, in my own head, I was a bit like, ugh, you know, I've just been on Resurgence. I don't want to look at that. And it got me thinking, is that there must be, you know, like when they look at the time, you know, it's like creating your perfect playlist, you know, and some of these musicians, they put together these playlists, and sometimes you think, well, come on, man, how hard's that? But then you think there's a little bit of science in it. And I wonder with these products, how much thought and research goes into the order in which they're released. You know, like if you get a string of those type of products that you said that might be a bit more plain, a bit more classic, or a bit more gloomy as you use there, then there might be a right time to release them. Whereas if you release them off the back of something that's got extreme colour, and then you go into something that's more classic, is that going to have an effect on that sale? Maybe you need to phase them down. So if you go extreme colour, then we have something in the middle, then do we hit something that's more of a classic look? If that makes sense.
Yeah, it does make sense. I think the only people that can answer that for us are the manufacturers. So
let's get them on, Buzzer.
Yeah. So Topps and Panini, if you're on listening to this call, I recommend that you jump on the podcast and help answer that strategical question. No doubt, I think there's probably elements of that thought process. I know, talking to people at the West Coast Card Show, that there is timings of when sets are released to create higher demand, because obviously when you're off season, you know, you're not going to get as much demand because people aren't watching, you know, the sports, right?
Correct. Yeah.
The leading into the season, like right now, I think today is the opening match for the Hall of Fame game, and it kicks off right for NFL. So all of a sudden there's this buzz around the NFL, and of course what's getting released this month is NFL Flagship, the new one with Mendoza, right? So I think the timing aspect is absolutely bang on. In terms of what set goes out and what doesn't, I think is dependent on those manufacturers and what they believe should go out and should not go out. And like you said, do they see a lull in the calendar, and so therefore do they try and create demand through a colourful product, for example? So Topps and Panini, if you're listening, reach out.
Come on the show. Yeah, I think to be honest, I think we know the answer, don't we? It's just the information in between that. So the answer, of course, is going to be some science in it, but like it would be great to find out what are the factors that are considered. 100%, because we know you can take a sample from yourself and how you feel to a product. You know, I gave an example of the colour in Resurgence, and then straight away I'm looking at the Panini stuff like, I don't want to know that. You know, I'm all over Resurgence at the minute. So I would suspect there's certainly a train of thought around the colour and the intensity of it. You know, Resurgence, without a doubt, is an extremely colourful product.
Yeah, exactly.
So if you were then to bring out a real plain classic product, you know, would that work? Maybe. Who knows? But yeah, as Baza said, let's get Panini, Topps, and see what they say on that. But Baz, I think this is as MC would say, to coin a phrase from MC, this is a nice little segue into something that I think you've done some content on before. I certainly have. But top 5 products, right? So you give me your 5, I'll give you my 5, and so on. But we'll make this fairly short, sort of short, I guess. But I'm just thinking at this point, look, we've had a few Topps products out now, and obviously we've got to know our Panini. You know, we've got something in common. I know you were in the hobby before, but you know, in terms of the time where you've come back and, you know, products have changed, we're probably not too dissimilar. So I thought this would be a good opportunity to see what products you've been hitting. So I did a post yesterday with this, and my sort of theory, we could always look at different. The top 5 list might change based on what the question is. So if I said to you, Baza, give me a top 5 based on your autograph collection, for example, where you're hitting where do you want autos? It might be different to what I'm going to ask you, which is we've spoke about it today. What are your most fun rips? And that can include breaks or boxes that you're open, but I want your top 5 from the last couple of years. Let's go straight in with your number 5.
Yeah, I think it would have to be probably Phoenix as a set. I think you kind of talked a little bit about that earlier with that blend. I feel like it's a nice balance of chrome, color, and the inserts are nice. But yeah, I'd say Phoenix for me at number 5.
I was so close with Phoenix, at 5. I've actually dropped Phoenix off my list, but funnily enough, when I mentioned Phoenix earlier, the one thing I found with Phoenix is maybe from a breaking point of view, it would be in there as a breaker. But when I've bought some of the boxes, I feel like you can have some real disappointments with it. So, but you can have some real highs. So I feel like for me, the gap is just a little bit too big at the lower end, maybe I've opened boxes and I've gone, I really enjoyed this. But then I've had some, I think when it's bad, when you get a bad Phoenix box, it's bad. And I think that's just why I dropped it out. But as a product for RPAs and patches and autos, amazing. Big Phoenix fan. So cutting through that waffle, my number 5 is Prism. I think you can't really go too far wrong with Prism. It's especially this year. I found that this year's product has been really good, and I've had some success with it. Yeah. So for me, Baza, Prism, Panini Prism in at 5.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, weirdly enough, Prism is my number 4, but the 2025 set, 2024, I think I might have mentioned in the earlier pod, I was on. I didn't really rate it. It kind of just, the design didn't kind of pop, but the subtle changes that they made for 2025 made it look really nice and bold and clean. And so for me, Prism 2025 sits at number 4.
Nice. On that line, I think my number 4 is Mosaic. So Panini Mosaic. Yeah, I know I had my story around my Tyler Lockett card, but I think Mosaic, when I first started to dabble with cards, I was getting from EB Games, I was getting like the fat packs, and I had some really nice cards in there. And I think Mosaic, again, from at time to time, this year the fat packs have not been, I guess, as fun. The blasters were fun for a while. I'm not a big fan of the megas this year, but again, when you look at the breaking side, I just think that they're just fun. There's colour as well. We spoke about colour, and I find Mosaic's really is a real colourful product. So yeah, for me, number 4, Mosaic.
Yeah, that's a nice choice. What are we up to? Number 3, yeah?
Number 3.
Yeah, I think.
Business end now, Baza.
Yeah, for sure. So I think we're following a similar trend here, but mine would be Mosaic at number 3 for all those sort of similar reasons. It's got some really nice parallels. I really like the pink and yellow reactive colors, and they really pop as well. And so the general overall design language is nice for me. So Mosaic sits at number 3 as a
cool
set.
Before I give you the number 3, I was just thinking about when I said at the start, if we were doing a list, say, based on number cards, for example, I was just thinking about Phoenix then when you were talking. Phoenix is probably one of the best products for number cards. There's a lot of numbered cards in that product, and I think with Mosaic perhaps and Phoenix, you don't see as many in the set. So you've got color, but if you want numbered cards, Phoenix will definitely be on my top 5. So it's definitely interesting. I think the perspective of where you're coming from when you create a list is certainly really important for the conversation. But at the danger of waffling on, number 3 for me is where things started to turn for me for Topps Cosmic. This could have been higher. But I love it. I love it as a product. I think the colors there, they seem to get a lot of color in there, yet still, to me, for the fact there's a lot of stuff going on in the images, the cards still look clean. They don't look cluttered or too crazy. And I think that's a real, what's the word? That's a real credit to them or the design team for that they've managed to do that. And I feel like Cosmic hits a lot of my criteria for what I look for in a card. I think it's fun. And certainly when it comes to fun, look, I didn't actually rip any Cosmic, but I went into quite a lot of breaks. And I remember how I feel in those breaks. I loved that product. I love watching them breaks. I found it a very exciting product. I've bought some singles. I've had people who have got cards and come to me. I made a really nice trade with Gene Rademeyer for a gold Sam Darnold, and it's just there. Look, right in the center. It's just a
Mm.
beautiful card. So yeah, for me, Cosmic, Topps Cosmic, and that's where Topps enters my list. And I'll give you a clue, Baza. I've got one more Topps product in my top 2. So hit us with your number 2.
Number 2, yeah, I think we're following a trend through here. Cosmic, absolutely, 100%. I think I just posted early this morning a set of Steven Adams from Cosmic in the NBA version, and yeah, just absolutely gorgeous design cards. And again, you and I, we sit on probably on that same spectrum of really eye appealing cards. The base is really nice as itself, but the parallels just absolutely pop, and they've got some really nice parallels that yeah, I think make it a really stunning product. And so yeah, it's a real easy product to love for me personally. So yeah, number 2 is Cosmic.
Number 2 for me, Baza. This is tough. This is tough.
Mm.
But my number 2 is Resurgence. I'm in love with this product, and in time, I think it could be number 1. I've opened 2 boxes. I've been in breaks. I've never had so much fun. I said it before.
Mm.
The 2 boxes I opened yesterday, loved them. I don't think you can pull one of these value boxes and not think, that's a decent. When you talk about value, right, there's 100% value in there. I'd have no problem putting some of these cards up, putting them on display, and then just being base cards. You know, like all the Seahawks ones I'll keep. There's not a lot of base cards these days I collect or keep. The Cosmic ones I do. But Resurgence, yeah, for fun, for eye appeal, for colour, for all the boxes or all the criteria that I look for when I'm keeping a card or when a card enters my PC, Resurgence is just, it hits and will continue to hit the nail on the head. What I am in the market for, though, I don't know, Baz, if you've seen any of these RPAs that they've done, but they just look amazing. And the 2 that I've seen come out are match worn as well. So for me, this product is just absolutely hitting all the boxes. So for me, Resurgence, number 2.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's just I haven't held it in my hand, and the reason it's not in my initial top 5 is probably it's obviously recently released. But if I had it in my hand and had an opportunity to have a look at it and be part of that, then I'd probably say just off the bat that it would certainly sit in that top 5 somewhere.
Yeah.
So yeah, full respect to Resurgence as we open the pod on it. Number 1, then I guess is that where we're at?
Number one, mate. Yeah.
Any guess, you reckon, of my number 1?
I don't know. I've got a small feeling it could be the same. I think for me, it's a product I've gone on about all the time, and it kind of sits in line with the products we've been speaking about. So I have got a guess. Do you want me to guess? Or
you have a guess, and I'll see if we're on the same page.
Origins?
No. Yeah, no.
Oh, I'm intrigued now, Baza. I am intrigued.
So yeah, Origins I like. Yeah, I do love Origins, and I love the matte finish and the thick stock rate that they use. But for me, it's Select.
Select, yeah.
And Select, I think probably is a combination of all those 4 cards. All those 4 sets that we just mentioned in my top 5. And so I think there's a really nice combination where I'm also probably calculating value in that space. And I don't think I've ever opened or ripped a box or pack of Select where I didn't come out of it and go, oh man, I was really disappointed. There was always something there, and I think that's probably another true mark of a good product, which is, I think, probably why Resurgence for you has risen up the ranks so quickly. Like you said, everything feels like a little win, right? So that rounds off my top 5 is Select overall. I've got a really sweet spot for Select and the products that they produce.
The Select is a real popular product, isn't it? Like really popular. Like people love Select. But it's interesting, Baz. I'm fascinated because as we've discovered through conversation here, we've probably got very, very similar criteria, probably got very similar tastes, but Select for me is really rogue in terms of that criteria, because when I watch Select, I always it's amazing. It really is, because what you're saying there, I hear what you're saying, but I just feel like it's a dull product. I've never ever clicked to Select. I feel like the colours aren't as vibrant. I feel like it's got almost an old-fashioned look. It's never really got my juices flowing. Like, look, don't get me wrong, it produces some nice cards, but there's always that sort of hype around the dragon scales and zebras and stuff like that, and they've just never done it for me. Never done it for me. In fact, I borderline find it baffling. It's weird, but but I'm in no denial. It's an incredibly popular product, and I'm definitely in the minority with. I don't hate it, but it just doesn't. I've never found it a fun product. A very intriguing product.
Yes.
I think it's certainly an intriguing product, and it absolutely has some nice. I've got and I've still got it on display, but I've got a JSN. I think they were numbered to 7, 9, something silly high, but it was a white shock. And as an individual design, that is unbelievable. You know, if we were doing a top 5 on card designs, or that would be a contender to be in there. But I guess as an overall rip or product, I've never really clicked with it. So, but yeah, I get it through undeniable popularity, I suppose.
Yeah, and again, it probably just reiterates a bit of a theme that's going on in this pod, right? Is everyone likes things slightly different, and the subjectivity about design, sets, all that sort of jazz comes into play every time. And even as you just mentioned, we might be on a similar spectrum of eye appeal, but then we're separated again by this personal factor of the design within that color appeal or that design language. So again, this is one of the beautiful things that I think the hobby has. And if you go back to your earlier question, if you go into a conversation and you go, oh, will they like my top 5, top 10, whatever it might be? I think the cool thing about this hobby is that you can have these discussions and give your reasons specifically in and around it, right? And I don't think you're going to get judged too much out of that, unless you make some claims in and around downtowns, which you said our friend Brock Nash will. I can actually just see him behind you, actually just eyeing you out.
Yeah, I won't be surprised.
Yeah, but
he loves a downtown.
Yeah, so yeah, again, it really just comes down to preference, and I think even as we said, you and I are in that sort of similar eye appeal spectrum. You and I will still have differences in and around that. So yeah, very interesting. So your top one.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, we still have this sort of rogue product. So everything kind of fits, but that's the beauty of it, isn't it? And that's why it's probably near on impossible to pinpoint 100% accurately what makes us tick. Because yes, we have this kind of 80, 90% match in terms of what we like as a collector, and then bang, we've got this one product that you rate at the top of your pile, and mine wouldn't even get a sniff of the top 5. Yet everything else is near on the same. It's that's why we love it, Baza. Exactly what you said there. That's why we love it. But number 1 for me is Origins. I thought about this long and hard. It's a paper stock as well, isn't it, technically?
Yes.
They make up for that with, as you said, the matte finish. They make up for it with the thicker stock. But the card designs, for me, it's a little bit, again, in keeping with that sort of color blast type theme where you've got the extreme color against a clean background, which is something that I love. I absolutely love it. The base cards for Origins are inserts in any other product. And what I love about Origins, I've ripped some myself. I've been in many, many Origin break. It does help when you feel like it's a good product for your team. So it's really nice. I've got a JSN laundry tag patch card number to 5. When you get cards like that, you're going to fall in love with a product for a start. So that there's an element of that. There's obviously the massive eye appeal element. And Baza, here's one for you. You're either going to get it or you're going to think I'm mad. Another reason why I enjoy the Origins is the packaging. The box looks amazing. When you take it out, you've got the pack as well. It's got a matte finish to the pack. Everything about Origins is just, to me, looks premium. It looks great. It's colourful. It's fun. It produces hits. It's just a lovely, lovely product. So Resurgence maybe could knock that off its perch one day for me, but Origins is in my 2 years of collecting has well and truly earned that top spot. And I think that if I could only open one product going forward, it'd always be for now, always it's currently Origins. I'd pick Origins in a heartbeat. It's going to take a lot to knock that off the top perch for me. Nice. But Resurgence, Cosmic, both got potential to do it over the next few years, and just see how those designs evolve. But yeah, Origins, Baza. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's a nice top five and a nice way to round off number one spot for yourself. And I like it because there's personal meaning behind it, much like probably my select as sitting at number one. And I think I shared at last week's pod, picking up that Josh Allen zebra for me was like probably solidifies the fact why I really love select so much. So yeah, the reasons that you've given, I think, are very similar. And so, yeah, a nice way to finish the top five conversation in Origins. So yeah, I couldn't disagree with your top five, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that top five. I think we were very much exchanging similar sets. And then number one was probably more of a personal preference that kind of jumped everything. So yeah,
Cool. Baza, let's segue out of this one quickly. Now we're going to finish the pod with a little conversation around breaking, flipping, and where we see the hobby and the potential within New Zealand. But just before we do that, a little plug for the Auckland Card Show. I'm seeing a lot of content from people, yourself included. We've got the Auckland Card Show coming up. Baza Collects Cards is going to be there. Just give us a very quick, what's your plans, what you're taking up, and just let people, just to reiterate that you're going to be there, and go and see Baza and just meet. It's the best thing about the card shows, isn't it? Like, we want to make a bit of money on the way. We want to get some money for our PCs, want to do some nice trades. But look, one of the biggest things when I did Wellington was just putting faces to those names and meeting people. So yeah, just give us what's going on, what's happening. Tell us about it.
It's, I believe it to be New Zealand's largest card show. And it's probably the premium one for the calendar. And it's going to be big. I think I can't remember how many tables are there on site, but yes, it's at the Auckland Showground, excuse me. And yeah, it's going to be a banger. Obviously, as you said, I've got a table there, which is my first time. So there's a combination of nerves, excitement. Do I have everything organized? Exactly.
First one, he's gone big.
Exactly. So yeah, there's an element of all those sort of coming through. But to your point, yeah, I'm just really excited to meet a whole bunch of people, which, as you're well aware, you can communicate through Facebook pages and so on and so forth, for social media, Instagram, and so I think it's going to be a real nice connection to actually put faces to names and do the hobby hug, as I like to call it, right? So, and it just feels like you've known these people for such a long time, right? Like they're your mates in that space. So yeah, to be able to connect with those people, I think is the main thing. And like you said, sell a few cards that go back into the hobby ecosystem to help other things. So absolutely. And part of, I guess, my approach is making sure that, I'm bringing a really good, solid range of both NFL and NBA value bargain bin sort of cards. That's sort of my area of, I don't know if you want to call it expertise as such, but the area that I feel most comfortable being able to pitch and sell and procure and all that sort of stuff. So I'm going to stay in my little lane through there. I have a few cards that will a little bit more expensive than that, but for the most part, I've got lots of value bins. I think I calculated that I'm aiming to bring around about 10,000 plus singles in that space.
Wow.
So the issue now that I think I've come across is I'm not going to have enough table space. So I might have to bribe the tables next to me to see if I can rent some space off them.
Not encroaching. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. So come down and catch up. It's next week, 15th and the 16th of August in Auckland Showgrounds in Green Lane. And I'm at table 240. So, but yeah, there'll be a lot of other sports collectors out there that I know. Obviously Blunt is going out there. So there's lots of us out there. So we're trying to grow the community and grow the hobby in that sports section.
And we'll have, I think Brock's going out as well, was Card Syndicate. I've actually got Brock's tablecloth here.
Okay.
The new cloth. So Brock will be there. I think he's teaming up with KCC, Nick.
Yes.
So he's going up. I think Auckland could be on the radar for me next year. Yeah, done a few, but like I think you said something there that made me smile. Is staying in your lane and the value boxes and stuff like that. There's going to be people, and this maybe kind of segues into what we are going to talk about to round the show out. But there's a lot, a lot of people have that sort of high value stuff, but man, we've been talking about fun. Fun seems to be the theme of what we've been chatting about today, and those value boxes. And I asked you the question, Baza, last week about what the value boxes were like in the States. And when I went into Top Play, I was in there for a few hours actually, and one of the conversations was around what you had said about the value bins. And I go in and I say to Shane in Top Play, have you added anything to the bins? Because obviously he's doing a great job. Look, if you walk in there for the first time, you could be in there for hours, and that's great. But because we're in New Zealand, that turnover and I guess range of value is a lot harder to come by. And I think having someone like yourself, who's, maybe, I'm not sure if you'll agree, but who's going to specialize in that area, and that, I think that's really, really good. I really do. I think there's going to be a lot of people there that got the slabs and stuff like that. But value boxes keep people at your table, and they're definitely where the fun is. I picked up one card at the Wellington show, mainly because I didn't have time to look around. But it was an Origins Russell Wilson number to 299. I paid $2 off Blunt Collections. Baza, I was buzzing. It was a beautiful card. It was numbered. It was Russell Wilson. How much joy I got out of that.
Exactly. And I think I shared my experience in when I was at the West Coast Card Show, and in particular Burbank Sports Cards, and the value bargain bins, as I mentioned, just next level. And so the joy that can come out of spending $20 is, really probable in a bargain bin. So for me, I've, coming back into the hobby, that's where I started back in that space. And because, when I was a kid, it's not like I never had the opportunity to go and get massive cards. So I kind of continued where I left off, which was in those lower end cards. And so, I've managed to stay true to that for me. And that continues to bring joy to me. And again, it was reiterated when I was in the States for that week and a bit. And so for me, I'm wanting to bring an element of that, or at least a really good framework that allows people to also experience what I've been experienced, whether that's through the range or the actual value of itself. So there's some really nice cards which you've pointed out earlier on, the Sammy Darnold, which $2-3, right? So easy peasy. And so you're hoping to grow the community in that space where people can get some really good value without having to break the bank.
Yeah, and you get a lot of joy from it as well. If I when I was at the Wellington Card Show, mate, if I had $2 to spend and I bought, and if that's all I had, I was just as happy as if I would have bought. And don't get me wrong, if I'd gone in there and bought, what sort of my level of Grail card on a JSN, I would have been incredibly excited. But I would also argue that the excitement levels are matched when you buy a real nice value card that you like as well. There's not necessarily a hierarchy for me. It's equally amazing. One's not necessarily greater than the other, and maybe I need to learn some lessons from that as well. I've definitely got lessons I need to learn from how I've approached sort of joining this hobby, and even when I talked about the music comparison, about what maybe you're doing, what you think other people would want, what they would want, or what you think is the done thing or the thing to be said. And I think maybe I did that a little bit with the hobby. I've said before, I rushed to establish. I felt I needed to have, I don't know, it's the right word, base collection or a semi-impressive collection just to be part of the hobby, and it's total nonsense, absolute nonsense. And I wish that I could have, had these or listened to these conversations when you come in. But it's like anything, though, isn't it? If you don't know anything, you're quite lonely when you come in because you don't know what's out there, and maybe more of these conversations, more podcasts and more engagement, which, Baza, leads us into our conversation. So when I asked you to come on, I was listening to another podcast in the States, Sports Card what else? I got the name wrong, didn't I? Sports Card Investor, Sports Card Strategy Show. That was it. No off season. And it got me thinking. It was a really, really engaging podcast because there's different types of collectors. You can go in and just get your value and be really in control of that, or you can be a breaker, or you can be a flipper, and all these different things. And it's aimed at people who are flipping cards. So how are we going to make money out of cards? So I dare say they have their collections, but they are actively flipping cards. And I'm listening to all this information. I'm like, this is good. This is good stuff. So he started saying about breaking, breaking's gambling. It's not good, especially if you're flipping or you're trying to make money. It's just not, it's a no-go. And he even said, don't buy wax. So now I'm thinking, all right, we're firmly in that investor category, because I couldn't imagine not getting the odd box. Certainly could do with throttling it back. But so I'm thinking, where do I fit in this? And how does this advice apply to New Zealand? Because before I hit that record button, we were talking about it, and I was conscious that we might be getting all our good stuff out before we record. But my sort of thoughts around it is, we talked about comps and stuff like that. And now over here, comps are relevant to a very small degree. If you've got one of your 4 or 5 buyers that might say buy a Seahawks card that are interested, then you'd go to comps. But I've got cards here, and I've said it recently on the podcast, that quite high value cards that I want to shift so I can invest into my PC, but I've got no buyers for them. So the comps become irrelevant. And part of this conversation, Baza, was if you're going to shows and you'll be there, and you're 100%, you're going to get people that come to your table that try and sell you cards. It's a guarantee. And he was saying in America, they'll say, oh, we'll give you 70% of comps, for example. He said, but on eBay, once you've had the fees coming out, you're basically 87% comps. So why would you sell lower? And there's some really cool information in there. And then I started thinking, how does this translate to New Zealand? Because we haven't got a consistent flow of cards. We haven't got the growth of, or the hobby isn't in a place where I can, people do, and people will flip cards successfully over here. But you have to go to specific places. You have to know specific people. You have to have specific arrangements in place. It's very challenging. Like for me, it's unlikely that it's something that I would be able to do. I can't buy off the selling pages because people will want to sell at close to comps. But then as a reseller or someone who wants to do shows, I'm not going to make money out of it. And then I'm not going to be able to reinvest that in other stock or my stock. So how do you see that changing in New Zealand? Are we only going to be the collectors for ourselves, or is there a way that you could flip cards? Is there a way that you could contribute to those cards coming in and that turnover of cards?
Yeah, it's a great question, and as we were discussing prior to the pod starting, I think we had some really good momentum talking about that. And so I think the thought process is we are unfortunately in the bottom corner of the world, far away from the heartbeat of the hobby, so to speak, where
it does have its positives, being
100%,
the arse end of nowhere. Yeah,
absolutely, yeah. But I think, as I mentioned in the pod last week, the hobby, or at least the heartbeat of the hobby in terms of its growth and accessibility and the product is obviously in America, right? There's no doubt about that, as you just mentioned before with that podcast, and people are able to buy, sell cards just so seamlessly, right? I think I mentioned bringing cards over there and nobody blinked. It was like, it will take everything, right? I'm like,
yeah.
I didn't have to ask anything, and it was just like, it was pretty straightforward. So I think the challenge we have in New Zealand, which is we are still relevantly in our infancy stage as a hobby, if I compare it to my experience in America and even Australia for that matter. And so that's changing. We've got some really good innovation starting to happen, and some good people taking some initiative in that space that we've talked about. And that's really exciting. And I think that's part of that evolution of New Zealand's hobby in that space. And I think the more we kind of have those opportunities to create awareness of our hobby, I think it will bring people that aren't already core collectors, like say yourself and I and other people. I think we talked about this before, which is the peripheral of those people that might be going, I do want to be a collector, but, there's no more EB games, so I can't sort of walk into that. Or, I'm not in Wellington, so I can't go to Top Play, or, I'm not on in Christchurch and Dime City or wherever it might be. And so therefore the accessibility becomes harder, or I don't even know what pages to go on to just be part of that community. So I think it's a combination of a whole bunch of things that kind of need to happen to elevate and evolve our hobby here to create what you're talking about, which is a really sustainable ecosystem of the hobby that is both fair and reasonable. Because whilst the terminology of flipping, might have some negative connotations to it, I think the reality is if the cards aren't moving in the system, I think Rob talked about this at Burbank Sports Card, then we run the risk of it just being stored away and the hobby
Correct.
dying as such, right? So I think there is an element of having the hobby stay alive through the cards being shifted through the different parts of the ecosystem, whether you're buying to resell or as a collector, and so on and so forth. So I think we're on an up on that. And I can see that sort of just being part of the hobby community last year and seeing the card shows, because that's a big part of it. And I think where New Zealand needs to be in terms of the successfulness of their sustainability is, I think the reality is we just probably need to ride the coattails of Australia, because they seem to be, on a really nice wave. And even talking to people in America, they're starting to go, well, actually, there's lots of really nice collectors and cards in Australia, so we need to start moving down that way, right? So you're seeing lots of social media influencers in that hobby space actually starting to make their way down to Australia. And so I think we won't be able to do it on ourselves if we want to create that really nice ecosystem where it's flourishing and everyone's kind of having this really nice opportunity to buy and sell cards and have that ecosystem thriving. I think we do need to somewhat attach ourselves to Australia, because they're going to be the ones that are going to probably help us build that ecosystem. And I think that's starting to happen now. I think we're seeing collectors coming in January into Auckland, which is a big show that is obviously across Australia. And so then now they're reaching over to New Zealand and starting to expand. So I think that's a good sign that, yes, we are starting to present ourselves to the world as a hobby place that is, vibrant and growing. And so that's my thoughts on it. I don't think there's anything wrong with the word flipping as such. As I mentioned before, I think it's part of that process of making the ecosystem of the hobby thrive and grow. And, I think there's cards that I'm even in my PC that I'm moving because I'm kind of going, well, actually, it's no longer serving me for this, but I needed to go and get me another card, right? So I think, again, it's also part of the evolution of it, right? So even those that are collectors that are going, well, actually, I want to start trimming my collection so I can get something else, a holy grail or whatever. Again, they have to so-called flip the card, right? So, so that's my thoughts on it. And I think we're in that direction. We're going in that direction, and it's in a good place. So we just got to keep that momentum going.
I think when we mentioned flipping there could be some negative connotations, but I also think that the ecosystem analogy you said there, that's the nail on the head, Baza, because I think about myself a lot, and I think I know I got nothing against breakers. I love it. It's been great for me getting into the hobby, but for me, it's not. And this is for me personally. I'm not referring to let's call it the art of breaking, but it's not a sustainable thing for me. I've got an addictive personality. It's not how I want to long-term collect. I want to collect singles, but I also want to have cards available to me. I don't want to go through long periods where I don't get anything. I'm just waiting for something to pop up. And that's, again, part of the problem. And it's this word ecosystem. So if we had the reason I've got no issue with flipping is because if we had more flippers, I'd have more accessibility to the cards I want. There's nothing more rewarding or fun, enjoyable than going to a card show. And I haven't been to many, but I know from when I've been to them, I enjoy it looking through the physical boxes. If we don't have flippers, we don't have that. If I had more of that, I'd probably break less. If I could go to, more card shops who had a high turnover of graded cards, of value boxes, I would 100% buy more single cards, and that would help me not feel I need to go into every break to have a chance of getting the cards I actually want in my PC. And that's the ecosystem, because you'll have people that love breaking. They choose to break. That's their thing, and they're in control of it. I don't make great decisions when it comes to breaks. I really don't, but I do love it. But I would love 100% if I could have more value boxes accessible to me that had a high turnover, and this is, but Top Play, amazing. Like, Shane's done an amazing job, but he's doing an amazing job to actually keep refreshing those boxes to the extent he does. But it's not enough for the ecosystem. He can't change that. That's because it's New Zealand. What I want as a customer is to walk in and it's just a constant merry-go-round of cards, because I can then go and pick the cards out I want. And I would 100% break less. Sorry, KCC, you can go crazy. But that's how I'd want to collect. I don't want to be so hooked on the breaks, but I don't feel that there's that ecosystem in place where it kind of meets my needs at the minute. And I think if we were talking, weren't we, before we in the green room, as MC would say, everything we're doing at the minute. And Baza, you're doing your content's great, and I love how consistent you are as well. But hopefully, all this stuff, these conversations, the podcast we want to grow, is going to help grow it in New Zealand. If we can get more, use a team as an example, Bills or Seahawks, you've probably got a rough idea of the amount of people that collect Bills cards. So if you want to move one on, you know who you're going to collect. I know sometimes you get a rogue person who's, I didn't know that you collected this player or this team. But generally, we know who collects Seahawks. We know who collects Bills. If we can get those lists growing, we know that we're going in the direction. The more Seahawks fans I've got, the more chance I've got of buying a Seahawks, the more chance they've got of buying a Seahawks. And I hope that we can get... You said as well, Baza, that it's those people that they may collect, they may be thinking about collecting, who doesn't know that this all exists. And they're the people we need to pull. We need to pull into our world.
Yeah, 100%. I think if we're to build the ecosystem so that it is both sustainable and fun, I think it is a combination of all those things you mentioned. And, the things that you guys are doing on the pod helps grow that community. As much as I'd like to think that I'm just a person posting stuff about cards, there is a part of me that goes, hey, I think I do want to take some responsibility of growing that part here in New Zealand. And so I think I mentioned the reason why I wanted to document my journey to the West Coast Card Show and to Burbank Sports Cards and to America from a hobby perspective was to help create awareness of what it could look like to grow and what we're not necessarily missing out on, but certainly to kind of go, look, there's so much potential here, right? And the potential is what we're talking about, is going to create that the future of the hobby. Otherwise, like you said, we run the risk of, Shane, for example, sitting on those value bin boxes or even the cards in the showcases for 2 years, and he's gone, I've got to shut up shop because I haven't been able to move them, right? There's that business aspect of that. And if I'll just make a note on the breaking bit, I had a real good conversation with Najesh from Blunt a few weeks ago, and I love his perspective in and around breaking. It is a risk, right? And he put a really lovely post out a few weeks ago kind of saying, guys,
I saw that, yeah.
It's about the community. It's about the people first, right? The breaking is just a part of that process. And so, be careful of that decision, because at the end of the day, we still have to feed our families and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
And you're right. I think part of making sure that the hobby is sustainable means that there's a balance between all parts of that ecosystem. And the reason why I think the likes of Burbank Sports Cards was so good as a shop is because they can move stuff so quickly, right? But they're also, that demand is there to be able to do that. And so I think we just need to get ourselves in a position where we can create the community even bigger, because that will create the demand. And as I mentioned, love it or hate the statement, I think we do need to attach ourselves to Australia because that hobby is growing, and they're probably, I'm going to say maybe 2, 3, 4 years ahead of us where we are. And so I think if we can ride their wave and their momentum, then it's going to benefit us and all the things that we're talking about. So yeah, that's where I think my points are on that, or observations.
Baza, what I like about your content is, in a world where everyone's a content creator these days, you're, now correct me if I'm wrong, and hopefully I'm not speaking out of turn, but I find your content's more focused towards the process. And I love that. You can go on and post pictures of your cards or, box openings and all this sort of thing. But what I find it's a world we live in at the minute. People you see a lot of influencers and content creators, and they'll be like, join me while I make my lunch for my husband or my wife or whatever. And I'm guilty of it sometimes. I'm sitting there watching someone make their packed lunch. And I'm, what am I watching? But people love the process. And I think that's really, it's an important part for new collectors as well. I like watching your videos when you're sitting there sorting out your cards, or you're getting prepared for the content you've been doing about getting prepared for the West Coast card show, getting prepared for the Auckland card show, pricing up cards and top loading them, and then your updates. You did one last night about how many you'd done and stuff like that. I kind of find that really engaging, and I find that a lot of your content is about that process, and I think that's a massive it's an important part, isn't it? Because there's so many, as we've spoke today, the ecosystem, there's so many elements to this hobby, and there's a lot of questions that people would have, even about how you store your cards and stuff like that. So I love your content, and I've got a lot of respect through what we do, how consistent you are, because it is so hard to keep putting out stuff that you hope people would find engaging, yet you manage to do that really well.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, first of all, I appreciate the kind kind words in that space. Yeah, I think for me, I made a decision probably early this year as part of my goals in that space to try be a little bit more consistent. And I think I might have mentioned it towards the end of last pod in terms of my goals. And I wanted to be a little bit more deliberate with the process, because for me, like you said, I personally, I haven't seen anyone here in New Zealand sort of go through the documentation process of what it is like to be a collector, the ups and downs of what it might be, the process. Because I think, like you said, the ones that are in the peripheral of our hobby that are, looking, maybe just sort of peeking and go, hey, what are these guys about? But all they see is high-end cards, the big flashy breaks, all the rest of it, and they kind of go, oh, that's not a bit of me, right? Or that might be a little bit too scary for me to enter. But then they see little old Baza Collects Cards, sitting down in the middle of the night, sorting out his 50-cent bin cards, or, putting labeling down to make it look all really nice, or whatever it might be, penny sleeving, so on and so forth. For me, I think that's important in that aspect of growing the hobby, making it sustainable, so that people can see and go, it's not always about the high end stuff, right? It's not always about jumping in the most expensive break to try and get that elusive $1 million card. And I think the risk of content only being like that is that it runs the hobby into a weird space where it's like, oh, that's a bad hobby to be in, right? It's gambling and it's doing all that sort of stuff, which it isn't, right? I think talking to good friend Najesh, he said, this is not what the hobby's about, right? It is about the community, it is about the people, and it is one of those unique hobbies, or one of those unique communities where the hobby is about cards and people. And I think when we get distracted by, again, the $1 million cards and all the rest of it, which is fantastic, it kind of creates more buzz and all the rest of it, there's still 80-90% of the hobby still lives where you and I live, right? In this space of collecting and value bins. And so documenting that process as consistently as I can, it is hard work, but I think at the same time, I feel as a personal goal, that's something that I'm taking my own responsibility on to kind of see if I can help grow and keep that community going.
Najesh is, his breaks are so engaging. Like he interacts with every comment. There's a lot of conversation, and you can tell how much that guy loves the hobby. And to know something amazing, he commented on one of my posts yesterday when I did the one about Resurgence. He commented and said, like, oh, how nice are they when they're in our hand, And now Najesh, he sees, we see it on Blunt, they pull some bangers, they pull some big cards and stuff like that, yet he's still got the time to be excited about me getting excited about 2 base cards. That's what I posted on there.
Yeah, absolutely.
And,
yeah.
And that's what's amazing about the hobby, they're just great guys, and that post you referred to was fantastic, because everyone needs that reminder. There will be people out there that will, the breaking side is, there is that gambling element, but you've also got to understand and get a take on why that particular breaker's breaking. Are they doing it to exploit that? Or people that gamble, are they doing it because that's a way that you can get big cards into? Like, I don't know about you, Baza, but I can't go down the card shop and buy a hobby box. Just can't afford it. No. So I wouldn't have access to. It's a way for me to access the potential to get those cards, and for say Blunt, for example, to take that responsibility and say, just put that reminder out, and just the way that they interact, the way that you engage, you know that the priority for them is to get those cards into the hands of those collectors. It's not the gambling element. It's just like, we're bringing you this, we're doing this so that you've got the opportunity to do it. But here's but at the same time, when there needs to be a reminder that you've got to remember why we're doing this. And I need that reminder sometimes. It's not about don't spend all your money so you get so you're chasing a one of one or something like that. We've got to remember that you've got the value bins. You can go and buy wax and stuff like that. And this is my last thought on it, Baza. This is never going to stop. It's product after product after product, year after year after year. So, and this is kind of a message to myself as well. If I don't get the JSN low number card this year, I'll get one next year. I might get one the year after. I might get the new wide receiver the year after that. It's a never ending cycle. It's never going to end. So I feel like we need to sometimes just stop and enjoy the ride a little bit more. And I think if I gave you $10 million to spend on cards and you went out, and you had 48 hours to spend it, I think you'd have the best 48 hours ever. But then you'd come home and I think you'd be like, meh, because you've been able to go and get what you want. Part of the fun is the journey, isn't it?
Yeah.
As cliche and cheesy as it sounds, I think it'd be anticlimactic. If you could just have whatever you want, it wouldn't have the same thing. And I think that's the message I want to drill into my own head, is just enjoy that ride, enjoy the value, but enjoy the little cards as well.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why if you look at sort of the post after coming back from the West Coast card show, there was not necessarily a purpose, but I was conscious to go, yes, I've done all the wonderful traveling and done all the wonderful, going through here, and it was, magical. But I was conscious to kind of go, I was still able to find these magical cards in 50-cent bins, right? Dollar bins, and being able to demonstrate and showcase that, because again, that's part of my own core values as a hobby, as a collector in the hobby. And so I think going back to the documenting the process, sharing that as best as I can, I just want really people to be like, it is a hobby, right? And you can make it whatever you want it to be. For me, I love the process. I love looking at cards. I just love cards in hand. I was going this morning just sorting some stuff out, and I was sorting some 50-cent cards out. I'm like, that's a really cool card. Man, I can't wait for somebody to pick this up and going, oh, is that valued too much? Actually, put it in here. Let's see if somebody can find it, and that hunt. And so, and then is it presented nicely, right? It's like, this penny sleeve looks dirty. I'm give it a new one, price it up, make the experience so that people not only feel welcome to it, but again, that experience keeps them in here. And I think you made a really good point with Najesh and Blunt in particular. They make that experience worth being part of, right? And they think about the community in that space. And yes, they run a business. And yes, they take the risk of bringing in it's a lot of risk, right? There's a lot of cash that gets put up in terms of being able to bring that stuff here.
Correct, yeah.
And so for all the potential negativity that comes with, say, breaking as such, I think they're one of the best in the business to be able to demonstrate, how to make it sustainable through various value posts like you just talked about, right? Like just making sure, hey guys, we're here for this, and that, right? And even to the point where I think Najesh said in that post, like, I'd rather lose you as a customer than a friend in the community, right? Or in the hobby. And I think that's,
he did, yeah.
Because I think that you've probably seen it in a few different pages. There have been people that have tried to start breaks and haven't maintained it. And I think part of it is because there's no fundamentals there first, right? And Najesh and I, when we were having a coffee about this, he's a hard out Warriors supporter, right? So if all this sort of went away and all the rest of it, sports is still his core fundamentals, right? And so that's where you can see the communication and how he engages, because he's listening to sports, right? He knows the players that he's breaking, and he can talk to that, and let alone the actual product that he's breaking, right? So he knows all the different parallels and all the rest of it. And so there's an element of a service that he's providing, or breakers are providing, that again have to also help create that experience. So yeah, that's I guess the final point on that bit there. So.
We'll start a Kuma Curry Sports Cards Responsible Breakers badge.
Yeah, exactly, mate. Exactly.
Officially awarded to Blunt Collections as of today. Baza, let's wrap this one up.
Yes.
This has been superb. I've really, really enjoyed this chat. Yeah, fantastic. Thanks for coming on. Hat trick ball. It's come much sooner than we thought. I'm sure you were surprised when I messaged you, like, I'll jump back on. But look, we talk about content and how people might perceive it. I've got a very little very, very small, but still interesting insight into what people like in the data we get around the podcasts. And I can tell you that the 2 shows that you've done spike straight away. The first show you did was our biggest show for a long time. It took a while to knock that one off the perch, and last week's show is already over 100 streams.
Nice. Yeah.
So people love what you do. We can see that from your content. So yeah, we appreciate you coming on, mate.
No, that's all good. And as I said, I'm always grateful and blessed to be part of it. So yeah, happy to jump in when MC or yourself need to be tagged in, tagged out. We can do a guest entrance anytime, like the Undertaker. Comes out of the wherever it might be. So
special guest referee.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's been an honour, mate. Just to wrap this one up, we're going to be talking about, obviously just want to say thanks to KCC who sponsor our podcast, which is fantastic. It's great for us. Can't thank them enough. Swapsies is a new site, a new project that's going on in New Zealand. It's something I'm going to talk about over the next few weeks. So watch this space and just support everyone that we've, Brock, for example, with his card syndicate. We've got Najesh, who's with the card vault. There's a lot of people that are putting in a lot of effort that are trying to grow this hobby. It's all important parts. We're going to have conversations around everything I've just mentioned there over the next few weeks and try and support those initiatives as well to try and grow the hobby. So, yeah. Thanks to everyone that listens. Thanks to everyone that is the numbers for our podcast are just continuously going in that right direction. So I'm a little bit overwhelmed, to be honest, with when I look back at the numbers for the first, few shows, 15, 17, like we were like, oh yeah, we got, I just wanted to get over 5, so we pretty much get over 100 streams on each podcast. And, this week I had someone I didn't know before comment on YouTube videos, which is great. So hopefully we're doing our bit, and conversations like this are incredibly enjoyable. So Baza, regards to your family, and we will see you for your 4th appearance in the not too distant future.
Yeah, absolutely. You might start seeing a trend going down and going, not this guy again. So
yeah. That's when I was saying, not this time, Baza. Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm mindful that I might be better off in little pieces versus consistently coming on. But no, you, as I mentioned before, you and MC do a fantastic job growing the hobby community both here and in the UK. So keep it up, and we'll see you post Auckland Card Show, hopefully for a bit of insight.
Definitely, 100%.
Appreciate it, and thanks for having me as a co-host today. That's
cool. Thanks, Baza.
Very good. Right.
See you soon, mate. Ta-da.